Hi. Okay, so in this video I'm going to take you through how to format and write a screenplay. And we're going to focus on the proof of concept script, which is basically a short script but is tailored to get financing for a larger feature or television series. So a proof of concept script is the same as a short script or a feature-length script. It's all written the same way, formatted the same way, but just so you know, that's what we're focusing on. So on this particular script is something that I co-wrote with this writer, and it is being turned into a proof currently, and this one has a lot of features to it which you can really take some lessons from. So let's look it over. So there's a title page here, and you can see at the top left we have the fifth draft, or draft 5, and then the title, which is in all caps and centered and underlined. Then under there it says written by. Sometimes it can just say by, and the name of the author. So if we move on down here, whenever you start a script, you always want to put a fade in. So a fade in suggests that this is the first page of the story and that this is where it will all begin. So if we look here on the second page, you'll notice that it's page 2. Well, on the first page there's never a number, but the fade in is one of those professional marks that you always put in, and the fade in always goes on the left top corner. It's the first thing you see when you look at the script. We naturally look at our left and then we move to the right. So as we come in here, this actually is on a visual background, so it's described as a series of data streams. In most scripts you wouldn't necessarily do that, but in this one, this writer has chosen to start this with a visual experience before we have any location. So the first location we see is the exterior, that's the outside of a large forest clearing, and it's at the day. So what this is a slug line, and this slug line here tells us 3 very important details. It tells us that this is outside, not inside. If it was inside, it would be INT. So if I look down here, see INT is interior, EXT is exterior. So it's in a large forest clearing. That's the location of where the scene will be shot. And then this is the time of day. So it's daytime, not nighttime, so we know that the sun is naturally giving it light. Now, as we come in here, we see that the action, there's a description here. It says, there's mist, rain, and smoke fill the forest. Bodies of black armored soldiers scatter the ground. A battle has taken place here. It's an excellent action line. It sets up the story. It sets up the environment. We know exactly where we are. Now, we get introduced to our first character, a cloaked figure. Enora, 23, slouches against a large rock, wearing a dark gray coat covering most of her body and face. So if you'll notice, Enora's name, it's the first time we are introduced to her, so her name is all caps. This only happens for the very first time we meet the character. And the fastest way to describe a character's age is just to put in brackets their age. Now sometimes you might want to put early 20s or late 20s, but it's better to just give them an age. That tells us as a reader that you know exactly how old they are. And from that moment forward, we picture a 23-year-old. See, if I say Enora in her 20s, some people might picture her at 21, and some people might picture her at 28. And that is a woman in an entirely different place in her life, an entirely different age, entirely different look, entirely different level of maturity. So when we choose 23, it gives us all a little bit more of something solid to connect to. And it's your story, you're creating it anyway, so you might as well, be specific about it. We say that she's cloaked, she slouches against a large rock, that's her position, that's where we're starting to film. She's wearing this dark gray coat that's covering most of her body. We don't really know too much about her, just that she's this cloaked figure. So ideally later on we're going to find out a little bit more about her. It's not the best introduction, but in this case, for this story, we don't want to know too much about her. It's better that there is not so much revealed. The soldiers in the next thing appear from the cover. So all of this here, these 3 first things, these are all action. So when you're writing a script, these are the actions, and you'll notice that the script only has, the action is separated by a space, and this makes it clear and easy to understand. So let's break this down quickly. This first action establishes the environment. This next one establishes the main character, And this third action establishes that new characters are coming in. So boom, 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 we get exactly what's going on in the story, and we're introduced to it. The first soldier, Soldier 1, who's, obviously not that important in this story, says fan out. So we hear that dialogue in the distance. So when this up here says Soldier 1, that is a character. So when you're writing a script, you'll put the character's name of whoever's saying the line, which is fan out. So if we come down here to the sergeant is another character, and the sergeant says transhuman subject secured. So if you look at this in brackets here, it's tabbed over. This is a parenthetical. So it's telling us that he's saying this into his comm, or into his recording device, or walkie-talkie device to message back to base. Now, after they've said that and Anora's clearly heard them, we come back to some action. So Anora slowly stands, revealing herself. Her face is dirty, scratched, part skin, part tech. There's a glowing cyan blue data-like blood throw beneath it. So now we're starting to see that she's not really a human, that, she's part robotic, and there's something different about her. So now we're starting to discover a little bit more about this character. We don't know too much about her personality, but the visuals are being set up so that we can kind of understand a little bit about who she is. So lasers line up with different areas of her body. Wind blows her cloak to the side, revealing genetically augmented tech fused with her body. A girl, Emma, 15, is pushed through the mist. So Emma's obviously important. There's another character introduction, and she's 15 years old, so she's younger. She's pushed through the mist, falling to her hands by an armored, augmented man, Ethan. So Ethan's another character that's been introduced for the first time, and he's 32, and it says that he's augmented, so we have a little bit of information that he's also not totally human. He enters behind her and picks her up, holding a gun to her head. So now we've already established in the first, page or half of the page that there's conflict going on, that this Emma is being held hostage, that this Ethan is probably a bad character or a bad guy, and that Anora, because she was the first one introduced, is probably the main character. So Anora says, let her go. Ethan says, you're one state property, Anora. She holds up a grenade, the pin ringed on her index finger. Let her go, she yells. Ethan smirks, releases Emma, who runs into Anora's arms. So clearly Anora and Emma are, they have a bond. Anora says, run and don't stop. Emma nods and runs off into the forest. So in the first page of this story, we've already had, we're already being hooked into the story. There's conflict, it's exciting, and it's interesting. And if we break down the formatting here, all of this is the dialogue. All of these names here are the characters who are speaking them. Everything else is in action. And what you saw up here at the top, this is a slug line, which basically establishes the details we need to know of the scene. Now, when you write a script, if you've established that it's outside and it's a large forest clearing, you don't need to write all of that here in the action, because that's already established. So we can move on to more important things. And as you get better at writing a script, you'll start to learn to not be redundant and, get as much information across as possible with as few words as possible. It makes your script a lot more effective. So if we move to the bottom of the scene, Anora says, I didn't ask for this. I'm not some fucking weapon. Ethan, wait. The massive explosion whitens out the screen. So the reason why this has caps is because it's a visual effect and we want to make note of it. And this just makes it easier when they get into production. So often with, a prop that's used or something, that's really important, or some effect, you might, or some big sound, you might put a capital letter in the action description just so we draw notice to it. And then the image breaks apart into data feed again. It slowly dissipates to black. So that was the first image that we saw before we entered this forest area. So instead of cutting to another scene, we've kind of cut to this other visual again. So the next scene is inside. It's a unit holding room, unknown time. So you would use unknown time if, we don't really know if it's day or night because it's inside and we've woken up and maybe we're disorientated in a certain scene. Otherwise, you would put day or night. So two figures stand next to the cryo chamber, silhouettes of a girl you're seen inside. Figure 1. What's the holdup? Why does she still have her memories? Figure 2. Sir, no candidates have ever made it to this stage. She needs rest. So we're establishing a little bit of content. Now these two characters are giving a little bit of expository information without really being expository about it. They're actually having an argument, so the information kind of comes out pretty naturally. Interior Cairo storage unit later, and Nora floats languidly inside of it wearing an oxygen mask. She is riddled with wires. Her eyes begin to twitch. A dream. The images are broken up. So as we're moving to this next section, we see that she's having a dream. So as we move through this script, you can start to see that, it's broken up into each scene with action, and if there's dialogue, it's here. If there's character, it's here. Now, this moment here where it says cut to black, that's a transition into the next scene. So usually you would just put cut to ... but in this case, for the visual effect of this particular story, you're cutting to. Now, this here to the right is called a transition. And you're using a transition usually for only a few reasons. One is that if you're cutting to something that's different than another scene. But most often what you'll do is you use cut to or dissolve to or fade to when you're cutting to something else that's a big change. So usually if the location is a big change, you can use a cut to, or if it's a big change in time, you can use a cut to. You would only really use a dissolve to or a fade to if you were moving into a dream or something like that. For the most part, just keep it simple, stick to cut tos. And even this cut to black is a little too descriptive. All we really need is cut to. We move forward. This underlined bit was just something that was being edited in this particular draft. You wouldn't have anything underlined normally. As we move through here, we can see that when we get to the last page, page 6, so this is a 5-page, 6-page proof of concept, so it will probably be about 5 minutes. Maybe it'll be 4 minutes. Maybe it'll even be 3, depending on how quickly things can be shot, and it might be a little bit over descriptive, so this is something you would cut down. But exterior outskirts of the city day, you'll notice there's some action, there's a character, there's dialogue, and we see a fade out period. So on the last page of your script, you'll put fade out and you'll put it on the right and a period, and this tells us this is the end of the script. And the reason why it's on the right and it has a period as opposed to something like this, which has a colon, is that this period says, period, this is over. So on the end of your script, you're always going to put fade out period just to let us know that it's over. And that is how you write a screenplay. So to get you started, you can go to Celtics, so www.celtics.com, and here it'll ask you to sign up. You can put your first name, your last name, your email, and your password. It's totally free. So you just go in and you sign up and you set yourself up an account. And if you want any extra features, like you want to go into production, Celtics offers that. But if you just want to use the screenwriting program, it's totally free and it's very simple. And there's a button below you that will send you directly to this link. So good luck, have fun, and enjoy writing your script.